God chose Noah to save life on earth. But what if Noah had said no? Without the ark, the flood would erase everything. No family would survive. No promise would continue. Would God choose another man, or would humanity end at that moment? The decision of a single man could change the entire history of the world. Today we shall explore the scenario in which Noah refuses to obey, and the answers reveal a little discussed side of divine justice. Stay until the end, because the last hypothesis reveals something surprising about choice, obedience, and destiny in the Bible. Subscribe now, and activate the bell for more alternative biblical stories that challenge everything you have ever heard. Noah wakes in the middle of the night with his heart beating uncontrollably. It is not the first time. This has been happening for months. Always the same voice, always the same command. Build an ark, save your family, save the animals, because water is coming. Much water. So much water that it will cover even the mountains. He sits up in bed, sweating, and looks at his wife sleeping beside him. She hears nothing, she never hears, only him. He gets up, leaves. The house. The sky is full of stars. Everything is calm, everything is normal. In the distance, laughter can be heard coming from the city. There are always people awake, there is always a party, there is always noise. The world does not stop. And the more he looks at this functioning world, the more absurd the idea of building a giant boat in the middle of nowhere seems. Because it is not a small canoe. The order is clear. 135 meters in length, 22 in width, 13 in height. 3 floors, cypress wood, sealed with bitumen, inside and out. Separate compartments for each type of animal, a system to store food that lasts for months, perhaps a year. It is not a weekend project, it is a project for a lifetime. Noah goes back inside. He lies down again. He stares at the ceiling. He is a simple man, a farmer. He raises some animals, plants some grains, lives off what the earth gives. He is not an engineer. He is not an architect. He has never built anything larger than a shed. And now they want him to build the equivalent of a lying, floating building capable of withstanding a storm. With what knowledge? With what tools? When the sun rises, he tries to talk to his sons. Shem, Ham, and Japheth are having breakfast, planning the day. He takes a deep breath and lets it out. I need to tell you something. They look. He hesitates. How do you tell your children that God spoke to you and commanded you to build a boat because the world is going to end in water? How do you explain this without sounding like you have lost your mind? He tries. He explains the revelation. He explains the flood. He explains the ark. The sons remain in silence. Ham, the most direct, asks, "Father, are you well?" It is not mockery. It is genuine concern, because what Noah just said makes no sense with the world they see. It has never rained that much. The sky has never threatened anything. Life goes on the same as it has for generations. Noah feels the weight of incredulity. Even within his own home, even with his own sons, the message does not stick. And if his own sons think it is madness, imagine the neighbors. Imagine the entire city. He can already hear the jokes. There goes crazy Noah building a boat in the desert. Does he think the goats will turn into fish? He leaves the house and walks to the plot of land where he should begin. The area is flat, dry. The nearest river is kilometers away. He tries to visualize the ark there. He tries to imagine the structure finished. But all he sees is impossible work. Where to get so much wood? Fell how many trees? Transport them how? And the bitumen? Where to find it? How to apply it? How many people would he need to hire? 10, 20, 50? And there is the money. He is not rich. He has enough to support his family, but a construction of this size consumes everything. He will need to sell lands, sell animals, perhaps even borrow. And what if in the end it amounts to nothing? What if the voice was just stress, exhaustion, his mind creating escapes for a world that seems hopeless? Because the world really is horrible. This he does not invent. Violence has increased too much. Before, fights were resolved with words, perhaps a punch or two. Now any disagreement turns into death. People kill for land, for food, for nothing. There are people who kill just because they can. The powerful do what they want. They take women by force. They enslave entire families. No one restrains anyone. And there is this strange thing that began to happen. Beings that were previously different began to mingle. The ancients tell stories about this, about a time when limits were broken, about descendants who should not exist. Noah does not fully understand, but he feels that something has changed. There is a corruption that goes beyond violence. It is as if the world's own DNA had been contaminated. In this context, the idea of the flood makes sense. It even makes more sense than it should. Because if Noah were God, he would also want to reset everything. He would also want to erase and start over. The problem is not believing that the flood is coming. The problem is believing that he, Noah, is the chosen one to make a difference. He spends weeks trying to take the first step. He marks the ground. He takes the axe. He goes to the trees, but every time he freezes, because once he cuts the first tree, there is no turning back. Everyone will know, everyone will ask, and he will have to explain. He will have to endure the mockery. He will turn his family into a target. And the sons? Shem is the eldest, responsible, serious. He already has a wife, has already started building his life. If Noah begins this madness, Shem's reputation will hit the ground. No one will want to do business with the son of a madman. Ham is the middle one, temperamental, proud. He already suffers bullying in the city for being different, for not participating in the orgies, the drinking, the fights. If his father starts building an ark, Ham will be beaten in the street, literally. Japheth is the youngest, still a teenager. The cruelest phase of life, to be the son of a crazy person. Noah talks to his wife again. She listens, but he can see in her eyes that she is not convinced. She does not say, "Do not do it," but she also does not say, "Let us go forward." She says, "Are you absolutely sure you heard correctly?" And this question destroys him, because no, he is not absolutely sure. He thinks he is. He feels he is. But absolute certainty of the kind where you bet the life of your entire family that he does not have. So he begins to negotiate with God in his head. If it is truly to be me, send a clearer sign. Make it rain a little just so I can be sure. Make someone else hear it too so I am not alone in this. Make the ark appear ready, I don't know, a miracle. But nothing comes, only silence. And this silence can mean two things. Either God has given up on him, or he is waiting for him to act by faith without needing any sign. Months pass. Noah does not build. He lives in a limbo of guilt and doubt. Every night he lies down thinking he should have started. Every morning he wakes up and postpones it again. He develops insomnia. He loses weight. He becomes irritable. The family notices something is wrong, but he cannot explain. How do you explain that you are dying inside because you did not obey an order that no one else heard? And the world around continues to worsen in ways even he did not imagine. Violence becomes the rule. Cities become open war zones. There is no more law. There is no more respect. The elderly die abandoned. Children grow up without any innocence. Rape has become common. Murder has become a sport. There are people who amuse themselves by torturing others. There are markets where you buy slaves like one buys bread. Noah looks at this and thinks, perhaps the flood is mercy. Perhaps ending this is good. But even thinking this, he does not act, because acting means carrying the responsibility of saving someone. And he does not want that responsibility. He wants God to choose another, someone stronger, someone more capable, someone who is not afraid of ridicule. Then the changes in the climate begin. At first, it is subtle. A rain here, another there. Nothing much. But the rains begin to become more frequent. The pattern changes. Before it rained once a month, perhaps. Now it rains every week. The soil, which was always dry, begins to get damp. Puddles form where they never were before. The animals act strange. The birds are restless. The dogs bark at the sky. The horses refuse to leave the house. Noah sees all this and fear tightens. He knows it is beginning. And the ark does not exist. Not even the foundation, not even the first beam, nothing. He runs to the plot of land and stands there, imagining how long it would take now. If he started today, working day and night with the whole family helping, how long, 5 years, 10? And if the flood comes before, he goes back home and tries to gather the family. We need to start now. We can no longer wait. But then Shem asks, "Start what, Father?" And Noah realizes he never truly convinced them. He never planted the urgency. He never made them believe. And now at the last minute, he wants them to drop everything to build something based on his word? It does not work that way. The rain increases. In the following days, water begins to fall as it has never fallen before. It is not normal rain. It is a torrent. It is as if the sky has cracked. People look up terrified, but they still think it will pass. It always passed. It always stops at some point. They cover the crops, gather the animals, wait, but it does not stop. The rain continues day and night without pausing, and then something happens that freezes everyone in terror. The ground begins to crack, enormous fissures open in the soil, and from within comes water. It is not rainwater that infiltrated, it is water coming from below, from the depths. Subterranean springs that no one ever knew existed explode with force. Jets of water rise meters high. It is as if the entire earth had been pierced and was now bleeding water. Panic explodes. People drop everything and run. But to where? There is no mountain nearby. There is no place high enough. Some try to build improvised rafts tying logs together, but the water rises too fast. In a matter of hours, what was a field becomes a lake. Houses begin to be swallowed. First, the water enters from below, then through the windows, then it covers the roof. Noah is watching from a slightly higher point. He sees the city being destroyed. He sees neighbors screaming, asking for help. He sees children being dragged by the current. He sees mothers trying to hold on to children who slip from their hands. He sees bodies floating, and he knows. He knows that all this could have been avoided. Not for everyone, of course, but at least for some. The ark could have saved hundreds of people, hundreds of animals. It could have been the refuge in the middle of the chaos. But it does not exist, because he did not build it. The guilt he feels at this moment is physical. It hurts in his chest. It hurts in his stomach. It is a pain that has no remedy. He tries to scream, tries to ask the sky for forgiveness, but the rain swallows the sound. He falls to his knees. His sons are beside him, embracing their wives, all wet, all terrified. They look at their father, expecting him to do something. But what can he do now? It is over. The chance has passed. The water continues to rise. The place where they are, which seemed high, ceases to be enough. They climb a little more, then a little more. But the water does not stop. It rises without stopping, covering trees, covering hills, covering everything. And it is not just the water that kills, it is the cold. The water is freezing. Those who do not drown die of hypothermia. Bodies begin to float in masses. At a certain moment, Noah and the family manage to grab onto a large piece of wood that floated by. It is not a boat, but it holds them for a time. They stay there, clinging, shivering from the cold, watching the world disappear. All the cities they knew, all the people, everything vanishing under the water. And then Ham looks at his father and asks with a broken voice, "You knew, didn't you? You knew this was going to happen." It is. Not a question. It is an accusation. Noah does not answer. What was he going to say? That he knew? That he was warned? That he could have built something but did not because he was afraid? Because he thought it too difficult? Because he did not want to become a joke? Shem, the eldest son, the most controlled, breaks down as well. We could have done something. We could have tried. And it is true. Even without the complete ark, something could have been done. A smaller boat, a raft, anything. But they did not do it. And now, they are going to die along with everyone else. Noah's wife says nothing. She only looks at him with eyes full of water. It is not just rain. It is crying mixed in. And the worst is not anger. It is disappointment, because she trusted him. When he said he heard God, she wanted to believe. And even doubting, she stayed by his side. But he did not act. And now she is going to die because of his inaction. In the final moments, when the water is already covering even the mountains in the distance, when there is nowhere left to go, Noah remembers every detail of the revelation, the exact measurements, the precise instructions, how it should be sealed, how many animals, how long they would have to stay inside. Everything had been planned. Everything had been revealed with such clarity that it was impossible to forget. But he ignored it. And now, watching the world sink, he understands that it was not a test. It was not a metaphor. It was a real opportunity. An opportunity to make a difference. To be a bridge between judgment and mercy. Because the flood was going to come anyway. That was inevitable. The world had reached a point of corruption that had no fix. But the ark could have been the way out. The way to preserve what was good, to save what was still worth it. Without it, the flood becomes only pure destruction. His family begins to lose their strength. The intense cold slows the body. Coordination fails. One by one they let go. First a daughter-in-law, then another, then Japheth, the youngest. Ham fights longer, but he also cannot endure. Shem is the last of the sons, and before letting go he looks at his father one last time. It is not a look of anger, it is a look of sadness, as if to say, we could have lived. Noah is left alone on the piece of wood, shivering, exhausted. He looks at the grey sky that continues to pour water and asks, "Why me? Why did you choose someone so weak?" But no answer comes. It never came. He perhaps understands now that weakness was not the problem. The problem was letting weakness win. When he finally lets go, when his body sinks into the dark water, the last thing that passes through his mind is the image of the ark that never existed, the ark that could have been the symbol of hope for the entire world, the ark that now is only a lost idea at the bottom of the ocean, along with everything else. The flood continues for 40 days. It covers everything. Nothing remains on the surface, no city, no construction, no body, only water. Water as far as the eye can see. If someone looked from space, they would see a completely blue planet. No continents, no life, only a liquid void where civilization once existed. And after the waters recede, that is when things get strange, because the history of humanity depends on Noah. In the real version, from him come the nations. From him comes the reconstruction. Without him, how does this happen? One possibility. God had a backup. Perhaps in another part of the world, far from there, another righteous man received the same revelation, and this one, unlike Noah, obeyed, built his ark, saved his family, and from him everything restarts. But this man has no recorded name. He does not appear in history, because history was written from a point of view that did not know of him. In this case, humanity continues, but from another branch. Another possibility, no one is left at all. The flood is the definitive end of that human attempt. God ends the human experiment there, and when the waters recede, he recreates everything. Not repopulation, recreation, a new humanity from zero, a new Adam, a new Eve, but this time without memory of what came before, without previous history. The earth returns to the initial stage, or perhaps God preserves someone that no one expected, someone who was not righteous like Noah but who had a survival instinct, someone who built something by chance without divine revelation, and this someone floats until the end, and from him comes a different humanity, a humanity that has no covenant with God, that has no promise, that has no rainbow in the sky as a sign. It only has the memory of the water and the permanent trauma of near extinction. In any of these scenarios, the world that comes after is different, because the ark was not just a boat, it was a symbol. In the real story, it represents obedience, faith, salvation. It becomes an object of memory forever. Future generations tell the story of the ark as an example that obeying is worth it, even when it seems like madness. Without the ark, this memory does not exist. There is no story of salvation to tell. There is only a story of destruction. And this changes the entire theology, because instead of God being remembered as the one who judges but also saves, he is remembered only as the one who judges. The side of mercy is lost. Only fear remains. And the symbol of the covenant, the rainbow, that does not appear because the rainbow was placed afterward, as a promise that God would never again destroy the world with water. But to have a promise, there must be those who survived to hear the promise. Without Noah, without a saved family, there is no covenant. Noah's refusal does not only change his life, it changes the entire course of human history. It changes the relationship between God and humanity. It changes even the nature of the seasons and the signs. Everything is lost because one man, at a critical moment, chose silence instead of action. And the most frightening part, he did not choose out of malice. It was not rebellion, it was fear, it was insecurity. It was thinking he was not capable, things that anyone feels. And it is precisely this that makes the story so heavy, because we identify with it. We also have heard calls that seemed too great. We also have had opportunities that seemed impossible, and we also stepped back. How many arks do we fail to build? How many times do we know what we should do, but do not do it because it seems too difficult, because the social cost is too high, because no one else believes? And how many times does this refusal sink more than just ourselves? Because decisions are never just individual. They affect those who are around. They affect those who depend on us. They affect even those we will never know. In the end, the story of the Noah who refused is not about religion. It is about responsibility. About the weight of having in your hands the tool to change the world, and not using it because it seems like madness. And about how this type of refusal does not leave only regret. It leaves bodies floating. It leaves families destroyed. It leaves a void where a future could have existed.